So the next topic doesn't seem to be connected to sequencing, but you'll see how it is in just a second. We're talking about camera movement. And what we mean by camera movement is moving the frame of your shot. All of these, everything we talk about in camera movement, should be motivated by something in the frame. You must be able to answer the question, what is the reason for this camera move? You only want to use moves to enhance your subject. The moves should enhance the viewer's interest in what's going on. A little mantra I used to use, and I still like actually, is more movement in the frame, less movement of the frame. Now when you're doing these camera moves, limit them to 3 to 5 seconds long. Shorter is better, but it depends on how far you have to move in order to get the start and end frames you're looking at. Longer moves will tend to slow down the story's pacing, and it will limit your options in editing. In fact, all camera movement limits your option because you can't cut out of a move usually. Do yourself a favor and do your editor a favor. Cover your move with static end frames in case the move doesn't work when you get into editing. And I'm going to quote your book here on page 69. He says, begin and end every move with a well-composed static shot. I couldn't agree more. If you want to give yourself some more options in editing, reverse the move, again stopping on a static shot for 10 seconds. There are 3 types of camera moves that you can do with a single news gathering camera. You can physically move the camera, you can change the focal length of the lens, which we know is a zoom, or you can change the point of focus of the lens, which is known as a roll focus. If you're going to physically move the camera when it's attached to a tripod, the only thing you can do is pan it, which is swing the field of view horizontally, or tilt it, which is swing the field of view vertically. You can zoom the lens in or out. If you zoom in from wide to telephoto, a longer focal length lens, that's used to draw attention to something within the frame. So you're pointing out something in the frame by zooming in on it. If you zoom out from telephoto to wide, you're going to a shorter focal length, and that's usually used to reveal information. Zooming can also be used to maintain proper framing when a subject moves around a little bit, but be careful because zooming is quite often misused. You should never center zoom. You should try and combine a zoom with a pan or a tilt to increase the interest for the viewer. The third type of movement is called a roll focus, where you're changing the focal point. The point of sharpest focus moves either closer to or further away from the camera while you're recording, and this helps shift the viewer's attention between objects in your frame. It also has the byproduct of emphasizing the depth in the frame, which is what we're trying to do all the time in television. To do a roll focus, though, you have to have a shallow depth of field, which is why we talked about depth of field last week and how you control it. The depth of field already limits the viewer's attention by de-emphasizing things in the frame by putting them out of focus. So, for example, here in this hockey shot we saw last week, the player is in sharp focus, but the goaltender isn't. So the viewer's attention is drawn to the player. When you roll focus, you move the focus from one point of interest to another. And here's a good example of that. So it's going to roll from the front figurine to the back figurine, and then back from to the front figurine again. That's a very simple roll focus. Always from something to something else. Camera movement is usually done to reveal information, new information or relationship between objects in the frame or subjects in the frame, and you always want to go from a well-composed frame to another well-composed frame, using things within your frame to make those relationships or that new information valuable. So here's a very good example from a piece of video you've already seen. This is from your hemp braid footage. So a number of things about that very simple clip. He uses a landmark, the Sears Tower downtown, to locate us in downtown Vancouver. He combines a pan, a tilt, and a zoom to reveal new information, which is the Amsterdam Cafe. And he also motivates the shot by following the vehicle and then letting it clean exit so you can actually cut from that point. So this person, and I know it's a guy, has used several of these techniques to create a good move and to give the editor options in editing, because we know from our hemp braid footage that shot lasts a lot longer than that little piece I've shown you. There are more advanced moves you can do, but they require more information than your basic tripod. You can do what's called a PED, which is vertical lifting or lowering of the camera. You can do what's called a dolly, which is a straight left or right movement of the camera. It's different than panning the camera, which is swinging the field of view. You can do what's called a truck, which is a push in or pull from the subject. Again, this is different than viewing because when you move the camera closer, it changes the relationship between the subject in the background. That doesn't change on a zoom. And then the last one is jib or crane. Sometimes people say crane. The camera's on the end of a boom, combines elements of a PED with a dolly or a truck depending on the position of the camera. And if you mount the jib or crane on wheels, you can actually get movement in all 3 directions at once.